How's everyone doing today? I hope well. And for myself, I'm getting ready to set up this Parker Hale Lee Enfield conversion chambered in 303 British. So I'm getting ready to set it up, to see how well I can get it to shoot, set it up for hunting. Well, I haven't shot 303 British in quite a few years. I haven't loaded for it. So I came out here today and I thought I'd take advantage of this cold, dreary, damp day we're having to just go through my inventory of things, take stock of what I have, what do I need, and so forth. What ammo do I have on hand, and reloading components, all that good stuff. And I thought, well, since I'm already knee-deep in everything 303 British today, this would be the perfect time for us to just talk about the old 303 British cartridge. And what can we learn from this old cartridge? And more importantly, is this cartridge still relevant for hunting today? Well, let's take a close look at this and find out. So what are the first impressions of this old 303 British here, just looking at it? One of the first impressions is that it is old. It's got a rim on the case. I mean, come on, who does that anymore? And then when we look at the case walls, there's an awful lot of taper in those case walls there. I mean, that don't look like a modern cartridge. That's not looking good for this. I mean, I know a lot of you in Commonwealth nations, it's an extremely popular cartridge. And y'all have used it to hunt absolutely everything. Really popular, extremely popular in Canada for moose and bear and deer and everything else. Extremely popular in Australia for absolutely everything. Extremely popular in South Africa for everything except for dangerous game. So, and throughout the African continent for that matter. Okay, so it was good in the past, but that doesn't mean it's still relevant. I mean, it's being used and loved on every continent, but you know, they used spears with stone tips on every continent too to successfully hunt game. So that doesn't mean it's still relevant. All right, so let's take a look at some numbers here and just let's see exactly what do we have. Okay, for those of y'all not familiar with the 303 British, it has a 311 thousandths of an inch diameter bullet. So that makes it pretty much 30 caliber. And it's only 3 thousandths of an inch bigger than the standard 30 caliber bullets, which are 308 thousandths of an inch in diameter. So it's using the same bullet as this 308 here, or 30-06, 300 mag. Okay, that's a good sign. I mean, 30 caliber bullets, they've been used pretty successfully. Okay. What about this old case? Well, the internal case capacity, the volume of this case, is almost identical to this 308 Winchester. So they're going to hold pretty much the exact same amount of gunpowder. Should be similar in performance, and sure enough, they are. The 303 British, it can't be loaded to quite as high pressures as this 308, but it can get really close. So velocity-wise, there's only about 100 feet per second difference between the 308 and the 303. The 303 British with a 150 grain bullet can go over 2,700 feet per second. 308 Winchester with a 150 grain bullet, it can go just over 2,800 feet per second. So yeah, they're really close. And that 100 feet per second, that's not a lot of difference. And in terms of performance on game and wounding, according to ballisticsresearch.com, the 303 British and the 308 Winchester, they're both identical in terms of wounding and performance on game. And that's been my observations as well. I've used both of them pretty extensively. So I haven't noticed any difference between the two as far as in the field. All right, well, okay, that's pretty good company to keep there. If it's hanging right in there with the 308 Winchester, and 308 Winchester is an outstanding hunting cartridge. But there is a difference between the 303 British and the 308. The 308, the standard rifling for it's 1 in 12 rate of twist. So about the largest you can go is 180 grain bullets. and still be able to stabilize the bullets. What a 303 British has a 1 in 10 rate of twist, the same rate of twist as 30-06. Therefore, it can stabilize heavier bullets than the 308 Winchester, and it has an extremely wide range of bullet weights you can use in the 303, similar to the 30-06. So it goes from 125 grains up to 215 grains on loadings. Okay, that's pretty impressive. It can shoot the heavier bullets like the 06. Velocity-wise, it's just a hair under the 308. Okay, maybe that's starting to explain why so many people in Commonwealth nations dearly love the 303 British cartridge. That's, numbers-wise, that's about perfection in a hunting cartridge at normal hunting ranges. And I know you Canadians, y'all love the 200 grain class bullets on moose. Extremely popular for that. Deer, smaller game, the 150 grain loadings were really popular. And then you've got the 180 grain loadings used on pretty much everything, kind of that in between. All right, that explains some stuff. So as far as just performance-wise, this old cartridge, it's still got it. So performance-wise, it's still relevant. But that doesn't mean it's still a viable hunting cartridge. So what about availability of ammo? There's a lot of great cartridges from the past that were outstanding cartridges. Performance-wise, they had it all. But they just never caught on. They never became popular. They quit making ammo for them. So for a cartridge to still be a viable hunting cartridge, you have to be able to find ammo for it. And in the case of 303 British, we can still find ammo for it. As a matter of fact, it's everywhere. And even here in the U.S., and the 303 British was never as popular here in the U.S. as Commonwealth nations, but it's still popular here. And until this most recent ammo shortage, I could run down to my local Walmart absolutely anytime I wanted to and pick up a box of 303 British. Well, I can't do that right now, but I can't do that with pretty much anything. But I can go to my local gun shop and they've got plenty of 303 British in different loadings. Matter of fact, I just picked up this box of Federal Power Shocks in 303 British when I picked up this rifle a couple weeks back. So ammo is readily available, but there's a problem. The problem is the ammo is readily available. So from a hunting standpoint, yeah, it is still a viable cartridge. But just the fact that the ammo is still there, that told me there's no demand for it. Almost none. Now that's probably a little different in Canada, Australia, South Africa, United Kingdom, Commonwealth nations. But just the fact that there is ammo, I know there's no demand for this. And I know even in Commonwealth nations that 303 British is nowhere near as popular as it once was. And this is going to be, I think, an exception from all the other cartridges that have quietly faded away into the night in the past. With those other cartridges, there's a lot of great rifles out there chambered in those cartridges. You just can't buy the cartridges anymore. They don't make them. With a 303 British, it's looking like it's going to go a different route. I don't think we're going to run out of ammo for it. I think we're going to run out of rifles for it before we run out of ammo. When was the last time you saw a new rifle chambered in 303 British? I don't know that I've ever seen one on the store shelf, a brand new rifle chambered in 303 British. I mean, every now and then somebody makes a special run. I know Viability just came out with a really nice single shot in 303 British. And USOG just did a review of that rifle on his channel. I'll leave a link below for that. It's interesting looking rifle. And I've seen a couple of Ruger #1s, relatively new rifles chambered in it. That's pretty much it. Now maybe there's some special runs from major manufacturers that are only released in Commonwealth nations. So maybe you Canadians or Australians, South Africans, maybe y'all see new rifles every now and then chambered in 303 that we just don't see here in the United States, but I know there can't be many. And I know from hearing from a lot of younger people, even in the Commonwealth nations, they're opting for the more modern cartridges. So, is the 303 British still a viable cartridge, hunting cartridge, even today in 2021, after its 130 plus year run? Yeah, it's still a viable hunting cartridge. We can get rifles in it, we can get ammunition in it. It's one of the few loadings I can get ammunition for. Performance-wise, it's right there with anything else. Just an outstanding hunting cartridge performance-wise. But I don't think it's going to continue to be a viable hunting cartridge. You know, I think we're going to run out of rifles. And there's a lot of changes going on right now that we're not really going to fully realize until several years from now, with all the shutdowns and shortages and lockdowns and everything else that we've all experienced to different degrees over the past couple of years. All right, so there's going to be changes that come from this that we can't even predict. But I predict a lot of gun shops, they're not going to be filling their shelves with 303 British after this. I mean, if they couldn't get rid of the ammunition during this, they're not going to be restocking. And I went looking for brass online. And I wasn't expecting to really find any brass because there's just not hardly any reloading components. But it seems a lot of the 303 brass has been discontinued by certain manufacturers. It seems Winchester has discontinued it. That's not a good sign for the future of the cartridge. And that just all goes back to, I don't think this cartridge has a future. I hate to say it, but it seems to be where we're at with this old 303 British, despite it being such a sweet shooting, well-performing cartridge on game. I don't know how much longer the 303 British cartridge will remain a viable hunting cartridge, but for the moment, it's still very viable. And it's also a good reminder that everything modern isn't necessarily better. For example, that really large rim at the back of the case. Yeah, that does look strange these days, but what that really large rim gives us is an awful lot of material for an extractor to grab onto. Yeah, it can cause some feeding issues. And the fix for that is you have to make sure you load them right. When you load 303 British cartridges in a magazine, you have to make sure the cartridge on top is loaded in front of the one on the bottom so that the rim doesn't catch when it's feeding. But that rim does, like I said, give the extractor a lot to grab onto in case you get a stuck cartridge, which generally isn't an issue anyway with 303 British because of all that taper on the case walls. So that large taper, that also helps prevent getting stuck cases in a chamber. So it might look a little strange. You don't see that on modern cartridges. There were reasons for that. And if you find yourself in really extreme conditions, those are advantages, not negatives. And for me personally, something I got out of all of this when I was going through my ammo and seeing exactly what I had, and looking at my powders and possible loads, something that hit me really, really hard during this. I'd been thinking, like so many, I'd been thinking, okay, anytime now we're going to get back to normal. All right, so for all the craziness for the past 2 years, year and a half, whatever, shutdowns and everything else, I'm thinking, okay, well, we're going to get back to normal soon. Well, I realized when I was going through all this, We're not going back to normal. Ever. We're never going back to the way things were. And what made me realize that was two things actually. And the first was when I was seeing what ammo I had on hand, factory loadings. This little box of Winchester PowerPoints here in 303 British. It wasn't that many years ago when I bought them. It wasn't yesterday, but this box of 20 cartridges costed $16.99. Price tag still on. This box of 20 cartridges that I picked up the other day, when I got this rifle, $42.95. It's over 100% increase in the cost of them. And we're seeing a lot of increased cost and supply chain because of the supply chain disruptions and all the disruptions and everything else. But that's a lot. That's when it hit me about, prices right now, and all of these prices across the board going up, not just ammo, everything. That's going to have an effect in the future. And all of the money that all of our countries have borrowed during these shutdowns. All right, we're still not fully open, many of us. Right, there's going to be a price to be paid for that. When you borrow money, you're borrowing against future earnings. So our nations have already borrowed against our future earnings, and all that's going to have to be paid back eventually. And you factor in everything else, yeah, it's going to be different. I don't know how, but I can't tell you how this is all going to play out. But it's not going to be like it was. I'm pretty sure of that. And then there's all the political and social issues that have came up during all this time. What got me to thinking about that was gunpowder. In particular, vargit. I was looking at different powders for loads for 303 British, and vargit's, it's got a really great reputation as a powder for 303 British cartridge. I happen to have some on hand. Problem is, this is made in Australia. Now, 2 years ago, that wouldn't have been an issue in the least. That's a problem now, with all the supply chain disruptions and you people in Australia. I have no idea what y'all have going on there as far as government issues. And I keep hearing a lot of things as far as our authoritarian issues going on. I don't know, not my country. I don't live there. None of my business, to be honest. I know y'all dealing with some things, though, that it's going to be different for y'all going forward. Can't say how. Maybe you become more aware of authoritarian potential, and maybe y'all become more liberal. Or maybe you go the other way. It's just going to be different. And for myself, with all the things going on here in the U.S., social issues and so forth, we haven't worked through these yet. We're battling that one out now, you might say. And fortunately, it's a battle of ideas, and hopefully it stays that way. But however this ends up, things are going to be different. And I know, me personally, with all the supply chain issues, no matter what I think or believe, I know I'm not going to be able to get this for a really long time. When there's container ships just sitting out there that can't get unloaded, and this is made in Australia. And for those of y'all that don't know, vargit's produced in Australia. It's actually an ADI powder, but I'm probably not going to see this in a really long time. So I'm going to make up some loads with this, use it up, but I'm not going to plan on ever seeing it again in the future, at least anytime soon. And that just made me realize I need to be looking at things that I can be confident that I'll be able to buy in the future, the things depend on and use and so forth. I need to be looking at things made as close to home as possible. And I've talked before about it's good from an economic standpoint just to buy things made as close to you as possible. It helps your economy, your local area, no matter where you live, what country. It's best if you can buy things made close to you. Well, sometimes you can't, that's okay. We're hitting times now, though, where we might not have many choices here before long, especially here in the U.S. and supply chain issues, so forth. So, throwing to that all the uncertainty ahead. Then there's a lot of uncertainty, not necessarily for bad. I mean, who knows how all this is going to play out? I'm just sure it's going to be different, that's all. And for me personally, I do feel a lot better knowing I'm marching off into whatever that future is, along with all of y'all. But I do feel a little bit better knowing I got something that, as dependable as 303 British going with me. So, anyway, I think that covered it on the 303 British and maybe a few other things. So God bless and have a good day.